because the management and transparency is what's very important. So once you submit a referral, you're going to have your own Home Advantage account, and it's going to tell you where everything sits. So if you have 10 referrals that you've sent into the network, it's going to give you all 10 referrals. It's going to tell you every milestone that that client is sitting in, whether they're touring homes, whether they're in escrow. And you now can manage through the Home Advantage application as far as what your pipeline looks like for the referrals that you've sent. And so it's pretty sophisticated, and it's all click of a button, guys.
LabCoatAgents podcast.
So one of the most taboo topics, I would call it taboo anyway, because I host this podcast and I talk to a lot of people, is real estate investing. And there's so many different ways we can go with this. We talk about residential, we talk about commercial, we talk about land, we talk about a lot of things. And the one thing that has never really been approached or been brought to me is, how do you help the common average agent, not the agent who's at the highest level, but just the agent who maybe even struggling with real estate, get into investing? And many of you of our audience have heard me say, you have a front row seat. And if you are a real estate agent of any level, any experience level, any time frame, you have a front row seat opportunity to invest in real estate more so than anyone else in the world. And if you're not jumping on this opportunity, you're leaving that opportunity on the sidelines. And so today's guest is someone who specializes in helping that quote unquote average agent build a real estate investment portfolio, set themselves up for potentially retiring earlier, or maybe it's introducing or finding a way to build more investors into your business. Because let's be honest, we're not just rolling out of bed and wallowing in business, not like we were 2 years ago. And so I think our guest today, Mike Swenson, is going to bring a lot of value. Introduced to me by Jake Dixon, who's a friend of the show and a friend of LabCoatAgents. So Mike, I assume you're going to become a friend of the show as well. Welcome, man.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So excited to be on. And I've been a friend of LabCoatAgents for almost 10 years now. So love what you guys do, love the content, and just love the way you help people, just to be able to give advice, give perspective, offer resources, just to help agents succeed. So huge fan.
Perfect. Well, then no pressure, because you're up now. You were on deck and now you're up. And so let's bring it home. But let's start with a little bit about you. Where did you come from? What led you to real estate? What led you to what you're doing today? You have a podcast called the Real Freedom Podcast. It stands for Real Estate Leverage Freedom. So tell us about kind of what led you to where you are today, and investing in apartment buildings. And now, like you mentioned to me offline, you're looking to do short term. So let's go deep.
Yeah, I think, my upbringing, similar to a lot of people, was, my parents raised me to, get a good education, get a good W-2 job, contribute to your IRA account, and eventually you'll have enough to retire. And so I kind of followed that path, followed that mentality. And then when I got to college, I knew I wanted to go into business. And so I actually majored in entrepreneurship. There was a program there 25 years ago, back before it was really cool, but I majored in entrepreneurship. And then quickly realized I liked the idea of entrepreneurship, but wasn't quite ready to take the risk of entrepreneurship. And so I ended up adding finance as a major, and I went and worked in finance for a couple of years. That switched over into operations. And I did do some real estate investing along the way. So I tell people I kind of became an accidental landlord. My wife and I got married in 2005. We bought our townhouse in 2006, and I was excited because it was a 2-year-old complex, and we got it for a couple $1,000s less than they bought it for brand new. And so I was like, oh, we got a good deal. It appraised for $7,000 over our purchase price. So we got some instant equity. And then I watched the market tank and all of my neighbors short sale and foreclose on their properties. And the properties were worth half what I bought it for. And at that time, I was working at a nonprofit. My wife was nannying because she was getting her master's degree. And I was like, man, what if I could buy some of these properties and fix them up or rent them out? but I didn't know what to do, and I didn't have the real estate knowledge and experience or the financial experience at that time to move forward. So we decided we wanted to buy a house. So I talked to my lender, and I said, hey, is there any way that I could rent out this property and we go buy a house and own 2 properties? And he's like, well, let me crunch the numbers. We found a coworker who was able to, that wanted to rent a place. And so we had a lease in place, and that
Nice.
was the kind of the risk that I needed to move forward as a landlord. And so we ended up holding that property from, I think we started renting it out in about 2010, and we just sold it last January in 2022, but it took 8 or 9 years for that equity to return to more than what we bought it for. And then I did a few flips along the way, house hacked. I worked construction in college, so I like working on properties, and got into real estate full-time in 2014 because I joined a residential real estate team as an admin ops person. The thing that kind of kept me from getting into real estate is I didn't want to be the 24/7 realtor that was working nights and weekends and away from my family and kids and all that. But I found out about these large residential teams where I could kind of just play my role and do a good job at that and let everybody else do the stuff that they like to do. So helped build that team. We grew it to be the 31st largest real estate team back in 2019 in the United States. We did the expansion thing. We had the expansion locations in other states and all that. And then kind of rolled that up, and I decided I wanted to then launch my own team. And so I did that in 2020. Kind of the fun fact there is my first day with my brand new team was the first day of COVID shutdown.
Oh.
So walked into my new business adventure, finally being free of my W-2 job, and didn't really know what was going to happen.
Wow.
So we did residential real estate for probably about 6 to 9 months. Kind of got a plug into working with investors, and we've been an investor focused team now for the past 2+ years, helping people buy, anything from not as much single family, more kind of duplexes, fourplexes. We also do some kind of small apartment complexes. We've done some short-term rentals, some midterm rentals. And so really it's just helping people find properties that fit. I kind of say I'm your investor real estate matchmaker. So whatever your buy box is, whatever you're looking to accomplish, on my job is to go find you a property that fits that. So we've been doing that for a couple of years now. And then, we bought a 25-unit apartment building in the fall, and working on kind of doing large scale, real estate investment, and going to grow from there.
That's exciting, man. That's a lot to unpack. So when you mentioned that as an agent, it sounded like to me like you kind of immediately started targeting investors as your core client base. What was kind of the deeper reasoning why you decided to go down that path?
Yeah, so it actually came up from when I first got into real estate on the admin side. Having worked for a nonprofit, making not much money, I assumed getting into real estate that people were making money hand over fist, that they, and a lot of them are. But what I saw is so many agents just struggling to get by, needing that next closing to be able to pay for their mortgage or make their car payment, and not necessarily thinking much about their future. And so I was like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because my past in the nonprofit, I maxed out my 401k contribution as much as I could, and I socked as much away for retirement. And then I got into real estate, and I heard real estate agents talking about, I'm going to be an agent till the day that I die because I love it so much. But I think the secret is probably they don't have a plan B, or they don't have any sort of retirement saved up. And then 2, I would see these agents struggling where every year began at zero for them, and they didn't have enough money to be able to put into some sort of savings or some sort of investment property. And so, that was back in 2014. I saw that, and it always stuck with me. Like, what can we do about that? How can we help agents see the mountain of opportunity that they're sitting on being in the real estate space? And the example I usually give is, if I was a stock trader, working, and I got a hot stock tip and I made a trade on it, I go to jail because that's insider trading, right? Because I'm using inside information to make money.
Yeah.
In real estate, that doesn't happen. We have all the tools, all the data, all the connections, the vendors, and all that at our disposal.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of sitting on that opportunity and using an excuse, or, and it's a lot of it's legit, but at the same time, maybe not taking as much attention and focus to go pursue real estate investing, so that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I do have passive income coming in. And what if my car payment, my food, and my mortgage were taken care of every month through real estate investing, and now my commissions were just gravy on top of that, all the fun money, And so that's what I'd love to do, is to help agents get started, take those first couple steps, or figure out how to scale to where they can start using this opportunity they're sitting on in real estate to make some real money.
So before we get into the investing piece, what about the working with investors? So as a real estate agent, is there any advice that you would give to an agent who, again, I'm sure many listeners right now are just struggling, and for one reason or another, they haven't gone down that path. They've just kind of been traditional. It's the neighborhoods, it's the community, it's SOI, it's that sort of thing. But it hasn't been investors. And I'm sure there's a lot of reasons. Maybe price point is typically lower. Maybe it's a little bit more complicated deals because sometimes they're dilapidated properties, things like that. But what would be the avenue that you would advise if somebody came to you and said, man, I'm struggling. How did you tap into that market? How should I pursue it?
Yeah. There's a couple things I'm a systems minded person, right? With my background in operations and admin. And so I thought about, what if as an agent, because I spent a lot of time helping to plan client events, staying in touch with clients, right? We know the average person moves every 7 to 10 years. So I've got to figure out, how do I keep a good, real, relevant relationship with somebody for 7 to 10 years to hope that they then choose me again to be their agent. And we hear the stories where they don't always do that, right? But I'm spending 7 to 10 years to stay in touch with that client. And somebody told me, they said, Mike, what if instead of getting 80 closings as an example, like that would be really great for most agents and small teams. Like if I could have 80 closings, what if I just found 20 people that bought 4 properties a year? And because those people are buying properties for a year, you've got that for as long as you continue to do a good job for them. Now we're not there. We do have clients that are repeat clients. We have had properties, people buy 4 properties a year, but it made me think differently about how I'm approaching my real estate career, where, I don't have 20 people buying 4 a year, but I've got a few of them buying multiple properties a year. Well, then that's 10 closings a year, 15 closings a year, that they're buying more properties with the money that they've made off of the properties that I've helped them buy. Mm-hmm. So it's sustaining itself. And so I tell my investors, I'm incentivized to do a good job for you, to find you a property that makes you money, because if you make money on that property, you're going to want to buy another property. Yeah. And so that doesn't mean that I'm just going to throw away. Now, we decided to go investor focused, but that doesn't mean I'm going to throw away my residential business. But what if 10% or 20% of your business came from investors, and you had those reoccurring closings where, maybe it's a couple people doing 2 a year. You've got a couple closings on the board each year if you help them find good properties. And then now I don't have to start each year at 0. Maybe I start each year at 5 or 10. Mm-hmm. And so I thought differently about investors. And you're right. Property prices tend to be lower, but they also like to scale up. And so it might be, I buy, that $200,000 property, and I get a couple of those. Well, then I do a cash out refi, and now I go buy a 4-plex, or I buy an 8-plex. And so we've seen that happen with our investors, where they sell their lower properties and they look to scale up into larger properties to get more of an economies of scale. So you might get, that 8-plex listing after you've helped them sell a couple of 4-plexes or a couple of duplexes as well. So it's kind of that reoccurring client. And I have a great relationship with them because I talk to them all throughout the year. I don't have to worry about, hey, will they buy from me 7 years from now, because I just helped them last month and now they're going to buy another one 3 or 4 months from now.
Yeah.
So,
well, not to mention, you didn't even mention the fact that how many of these properties then at some point in time, whether they're a flip or they're a long-term hold, need to be sold. And naturally, who are they going to turn to sell?
Right. And that, as being in the investment space, a lot of the property managers also have licenses at times. And so, you still got to stay in touch with them. You still got to have a great relationship because they are working with their property manager. Now, I could start a property management company as well, but at the same time, yeah, you're in a position where if you're staying in touch with them, you help them do a great job on the purchase of that property. They naturally will want to come to you to be able to sell that property. And then if you're talking, 1031 exchange, if you don't want to pay taxes on that gain, yeah, they're probably going to pour that sale into a future buy with you. And so you can double end that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love it. What about taking this approach to the non quote unquote investor? So it's the W-2 employee, it's the teacher, it's the business person, doesn't matter, any career person, and just taking it to them and educating them, but also providing them the opportunity.
Yeah, that is the challenge that we find is, if I'm essentially competing for investment dollars, right? For that person that doesn't know real estate. So they can go look at the stock market, they can go look at their 401k plan and see what their mutual fund produced over the last 3-year, 5-year, 10-year average, and they know it's X%, right? So I've got to be able to show them that this beats that, and there's additional risks. And I think at the same time, there's additional risks with a stock market. It can go down. Sometimes, people invest in Bitcoin or, stuff like that too. That stuff can go down, and it has. And so you've got to show them how real estate can get them where they need to go and show them the potential returns. A lot of people talk about if you're buying a cash flowing property, you get cash flow every month. They're paying off your mortgage. So your mortgage is going down every month. You get tax benefits. And then you get appreciation, assuming that the housing market continues to go up over time. And if you're buying a property for 3, 5, 10-year hold, yeah, the market might soften for a year or two, but over 10 years, it's probably going to go up. And so what you need to show them is how all of those different levers add up to something that has a much bigger opportunity than the stock market or, those other investment vehicles. And they're still going to diversify. You're not going to, I feel like you can still diversify only within real estate, but there's other opportunities out there. The hard thing is it's tough to show them because each property is different. Each opportunity is different. I can't show you, if you would have taken this dollar amount here, invested in the stock market versus bought this property 5 years ago, here's the difference in price. You got to get a lot of time, a lot of face time with them to be able to lay that out side by side. So that is the challenge, is trying to quantify that for them. Just like if I was an agent selling a residential listing, hey, I can get you top dollar. And another agent in their pitch says, I can get you top dollar. How do you know which one to believe? And so you've got to be able to show them that data, to show, well, my top dollar is higher than the other person's top dollar. And then if they don't choose you and they sell it, could you have gotten more? They're not going to know that. So that's kind of that challenging piece. But that's where I kind of am the flag bearer here of investment property as an opportunity to hit your financial goals. I want to do that. And so we have deal calculators where we put together, here's the projections. Now you still got to do your own due diligence, but here's what you could stand to make on this property or this opportunity over some of the other opportunities out there.
Love it, man. Yeah. And the other piece of this too, that not many people are thinking about, but let me just give you an extra reason why I love the thought of an agent attacking the real estate side is content. Because that's, what I teach and coach, and it's HGTV style. And so anytime you have that opportunity to kind of do a before and after, or tell a story about, about how an investor went in and bought it for X and spent X and flipped it for X or rented it for X. And people love to consume that stuff. And then all of a sudden it elevates your authority status in the real estate space. You end up getting more eyeballs, which ends up getting more followers, which ends up getting more conversations, which creates more opportunities. And so that's another piece of this too, because the more you're dabbling in that arena, the more opportunity it gives you now to market yourself with content that they actually want to consume, not the typical Monday market update crap that nobody wants to watch. Right. Yeah. So I want to ask you this. my next train of thought, and I'm not a real estate agent, is okay, why? And this is how my brain thinks. Okay, so if I'm going to sit here and pursue and present opportunities for investors, great opportunities in theory, right? Opportunities, like you said, where they're going to make money, because if they do, they'll come back to me. Why am I not cherry picking these? Why am I not pursuing this for myself? And I don't know any statistics on this, but my guess is most agents look at it through one particular lens, which is I want to get a buyer to buy a house or get a seller to sell a house. They don't look at it and say, oh, that's a great opportunity, I need to call Mike and see if he wants to buy it. They don't say, oh, that's a great opportunity, I need to buy it. And so that's the other wavelength here, that we're now going to go down that rabbit hole of why not think that way? Why don't agents think that way? And so what are your thoughts on just that?
Well, that's exactly how we got the 25 unit apartment is, I'm looking at investment opportunities every day. Some of them, I think too, investors all have different goals and objectives and different buy boxes. And so it might be that a certain investor, let's just use Section 8 as an example. Like there's some investors that wouldn't want to buy a property that could have Section 8 tenants because they view it as having more hassle, right? There's more hassle, there's more wear and tear on the property. So I have a conversation with an investor that they're like, you know what, Mike, I'm not really interested in properties that might have Section 8 because of those reasons.
Sure.
I go talk to another investor. They're like, Mike, we have Section 8 properties. We love them because, we're getting guaranteed income. And during COVID, when a lot of the tenants were struggling to pay rents, our income didn't go down because we love Section 8. So I think that's the other cool piece is everybody has different investment objectives and different preferences. That being said, absolutely, like you said, if something fits your buy box or fits the opportunity that you want to pursue, I want to go pursue that. So for me, because I had a few smaller properties, I was looking to scale up. And so I was looking for an opportunity where, and two, I didn't want to, because I want to still work with buyers and sellers and investors, I'm looking for an opportunity where a property wasn't going to soak up a bunch of my time. And so I wanted a property that was large enough where a good property manager that I trusted was going to be able to run with this renovation project. I don't have to play GC. I don't have to go find the plumbers, the electricians, and all that, because we had done a flip a couple years ago. Took a lot of my time out. I took a lot of time away from my family. So I was looking for kind of that passive opportunity. So we have a wholesaler that finds a lot of properties for us. And he says, hey, here's this deal we've got. We've got this 25 unit property. I know you have a lot of investors that like that. Would you be interested? I ran the numbers on it and I talked to the other folks on my team and was like, guys, I think this is the one. I think this is the one that we put our eggs in and we partner up on. We bring in another investor to help us too, and we buy it. So we did. And now we're in the process of renovating those 25 units, probably sell in a year or two from now, and then go take those and go buy another larger property as well. And then same thing on the short-term rental side, we're analyzing short-term opportunities. And so we're looking at, hey, let's partner with some investors that we know that might be interested in some short-term opportunities. What's the value that we can provide? And how do we help grow together faster? So I typically, when I'm talking with an investor or an agent or somebody that's interested in getting started in investing, I talk about the kind of the value triangle. So, if you picture the three sides of a triangle, we've got time, money, and expertise. And so it's possible that you could do all three of these things, or you have all three of these things yourself, but you could potentially grow faster if you go find partners or you go find people that want to do this with you that can add value in maybe the areas where you're weak. So I look at it as, for my side of the triangle, I have expertise because I'm looking at investment properties all day long. Mm-hmm. I have a little bit of time, but like I said, with my larger deal, I didn't want to get sucked into being the GC and having to do all that work. So I'm looking for leverage through a good property manager. And then money. Yeah, I have some money, but if I can have more money from other investors, I can scale faster. So, this investor came in and put up a good chunk of money on this 25 unit. And then now we're partnering with other investors as well to help us grow faster. So I could go get a portfolio much quicker partnering with investors versus putting all of my own funds into investment properties. And so I tell people kind of look at that triangle: time, money, expertise. Where am I best? And then where can I go find people to help fill out that triangle so we can grow further, faster together?
I love it. Why are you flipping the 25 unit versus holding?
Well, so it'll either be take the proceeds from the sale and go scale into a couple of properties versus having just the 125 unit. Be able to, kind of the leverage right on the lending side. If I can go sell that, go put 25% down on 2 other properties, maybe I can go get 50 units instead of 25. Or maybe I can pursue some other investments. And so I would do, a 1031 exchange as well, so we don't have that taxable event. So that's another opportunity. Or the other conversation we're having is do a cash out refi, get some of that capital back, go pour that into a property and continue to hold it, because it is a pretty good cash flowing asset. So that's kind of where we're at. I think we decided, number one, we got to renovate the units, get the value up. But then we would look at either a cash out refi or a sale, and kind of just depends on the market and where we're at. And then 2, because you're working with other partners, we all have different goals and objectives. So making sure we're on the same page and we make a good team decision. So
Got it. Yeah. So it's just simply it's opportunity. You just see it as a bigger opportunity to sell and purchase more versus just holding on to it and cash flowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which could be fine. We might decide to hold, and yeah, if the refi makes sense, depending on where the rates are at that time, yeah, we might just sit on it too.
Keyword: where the rates are. That's right.
Yep. So
I love it. So, what is your very specific strategy as it relates to, finding property? Do you guys have any, specific techniques? I've talked to a lot of investors over the years, and some do the old driving around the neighborhoods and, if they see a property with high grass, they make a pitch for it. And I've heard a bunch of other, different strategies. What is your strategy for finding investment properties?
It's a little bit of everything, because we're pursuing opportunities not only for ourselves but also our investors, and because we're an investor focused team, we're casting a wide net. It is a combination. I will say, at least in my market, I know some markets are a little bit different. The MLS actually provides some opportunities. I would say more than half of the properties that we close with our investors are deals that have been on the MLS. Like I said, not every market can say that. So that's a start. And what I tell people for the MLS is, you at least have because we're analyzing deals all day long, you kind of have the information at your disposal right away, right? The purchase price. A lot of times if they're entering it well, the current rents, the current leases, the current expenses, or you could reach out to the listing agent. Because the seller's incentivized to sell, they're going to get back to you with questions. So you can kind of flesh through those properties pretty quickly. And then off market, it's just a lot of networking. So we network with wholesalers. We join a lot of kind of off market Facebook groups, trying to find those off market opportunities. I always tell people, if you go in those groups, get on people's buyer lists. So I'm on a ton of lists of any off market stuff they send to me. And so that's another route. Other agents.
What specific, before you go on, what specific kind of Facebook group are we talking?
Yeah. So if you just search, your community, so I'm in, Minneapolis, St. Paul. So we've got, the Twin Cities. So it might be, Minneapolis, St. Paul, off-market properties, Twin Cities, off-market properties,
so
Twin
very
Cities
specific
deals,
off-market property groups.
Yeah. Or even just like deals, real estate investors. There's a real estate investment association groups in a lot of the major markets. So you can go there. So you can start networking and kind of find out where that off-market investor kind of crowd likes to hang out, networking, going to different events, investor events, that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, in a lot of those groups, you'll see, hey, Does anybody want to be added to the buyer list? Okay, great. So, we kind of had a competition on our team is how fast, who's the first one in our team that's going to get their email on those buyer lists. And so it takes time. So it's not like, week one, when we started to do this, now we're getting all these awesome deals, but it started to come back in. Now we're having agents reach out to us. Hey, I heard you have investors that like to buy this type of property, or, hey, I hear you have investors that, because not a lot of investors are going over 4 units. A lot of them are just kind of single family duplexes.
Mhm.
So a lot of the over 4 unit stuff, sometimes we'll get calls of, hey, I hear you might have investors that like to buy these types of properties. Do you have anybody? So it just like, getting your name out there in the residential space, it takes time. But then other agents. So other agents doing investments or listing investment properties was another spot that we reached out to pursue. So who's the agents right now listing the single family flips, the duplexes, the fourplexes? And then I just reached out to each of them. Hey, we have investors that we work with. Can you add me to your deal list? And then the question that I always train agents is, do you have anything else? So they might have just listed a duplex. Do you have anything else coming down the line? Do you have anything else that investors might want to invest in? Do you have anything else? And it's not a one-time conversation. It's like, well, I asked them in February and they said no. So now here we are in May. Okay, I guess they don't have anything. You got to keep asking.
Mhm.
And so just like, marketing to your buyers, and sellers, we do a lot of marketing to the other agents just to stay in front of them, to try to connect and build relationships with them. What we're finding too, we've done the get a cash offer on your home, reach out to us type thing. And what we also find too is a lot of those sellers that are looking to sell are like, oh yeah, when I ask them, who else have you reached out to? Oh yeah, we reached out to Open Door. Oh yeah, we reached out to Zillow. We reached out to 3 other iBuyers. You're the 5th offer that we have. So are you going to be able to beat these other 5 offers? Some of that stuff happens too. So it's kind of like, you've got to have your sweet spots, just like the residential side, but you're going to get sources of business from lots of different areas. And so, our pursuit is more after finding the deals versus an agent's pursuit. A residential agent's pursuit is keeping the relationships with the buyers and the sellers. We're going and building relationships with the properties, trying to find either who's listing the properties or who's selling the properties themselves, and try to go find and build those relationships.
That's good. I mean, I think that's something that a lot of agents probably overlook, is just kind of the aggregation of all of the different sources for where you can find properties. And really, that's probably where the hardest grind is, right? Is just digging up all of those resources so that you can get it on as many lists as possible. What would you say is the turn time on something like that? So now that you've gotten to that level where you have aggregated all of these various sources, how many properties are coming in front of you before you're finding the right one? Is there, you find a certain kind of just rough percentage of how many, it's like I have to call 100 leads before I get one, maybe,
Yeah. I would say, for us, like I said, the MLS is a good source for us. The reality is 95% of them aren't worth pursuing for the numbers that I know our investors want to hit. A lot of our investors are out of state, or they're not looking to occupy. So like the house hacker, the fix and flipper isn't really where we live. And so there's a lot of good deals out for those types of people. I'm just looking for the non-owner occupant investor. And so, I'll know just by looking at the MLS as an example, like a duplex in Minneapolis might sell for $400,000 or $400,000. The rents coming in might be $2,400. I know that's not going to pencil for the investor that we're looking for. So, probably similar, kind of the 1 in 100. You're going to have to go through a lot of deals. But the nice thing is when you find that deal that fits, now I blast it out to my investor database and say, hey, here's an opportunity. Do you want to move on it? And if they're in the market actively looking for a property, they tend to move on them pretty quick. And so I'll say the competition. So if I'm comparing investor to residential, the competition is a little bit less, at least what we found. So, when we kind of first got into the investor side, early 2021, it's, hey, we just, I'm competing with 40 other offers on this property on the residential side. We'd maybe have 3 to 5. So there's still a little bit of competition, but not yet to the same level. A lot of our investors were pretty well funded and experienced. And so we kind of rose to the top when the listing agent or the seller would reach out and say, tell me more about your investor. So there's a little less competition there. But make no mistake, there's still a grind element of, you got to look at a lot of deals to find that one that's going to fit. The other thing that I do tell people is, kind of to use a baseball analogy, a lot of times the investors are looking for the home run deal. And I've, listened to a lot of investing podcasts. There's still good opportunities and a good single and a good double as well. And so you don't want to just sit and only wait for those home runs, because if you're going to be an investor and have 5, 10, maybe 20 properties down the road, you're going to need some singles and doubles along the way. And so if the numbers work out, let's move forward on it. Instead of waiting for that very perfect opportunity that I'm going to spend 2 years waiting on and passing up all these other opportunities, just waiting for that home run.
Not to mention, there's probably a hell of a lot more competition in the home runs.
Exactly. Yep.
I love it, man. I love it. What am I missing? What have I not asked you that is something that you would think that there was just absolute value for the audience or for somebody listening who might want to be getting into this realm?
Yeah. So what I would say is, agents get busy and agents don't necessarily prioritize building their investment portfolio. I've talked with a lot of agents because they're so focused on their next sale. They're so focused on keeping the deal that they have together to get it to closing, that a lot of them look up a year from now, 2 years from now, and it's like, shoot, I haven't moved any closer to my real estate investing goals or my future finance goals because I'm just so busy with the day-to-day in real estate. And so what I want to encourage agents to do is, what can you do in a given day or a given week or a given month to take steps to move closer to your investing goals? Because the hard thing is if I'm looking to save up a down payment on a property myself, right? If I'm not going to partner with somebody, the difference between today and tomorrow, unless I just had a closing, my financial situation is that much different. So if I'm looking to put aside an extra 10 grand to be able to put down on a property, the difference between today and tomorrow isn't going to change it. The difference between today and next week maybe isn't going to change it. But you got to figure out how to keep taking a small step forward every day, every week, or every month so that you can hit your goal. So if my goal is to get a property by the end of the year, I know I can't wake up Thanksgiving and be like, okay, whoop, now I got to go get my property by the end of the year, because it takes a little bit of time. And so those little slivers of time between now and the end of the year, when you continue to research properties, network, and find deals to the point to where deals are coming to you, that's how you get your property by the end of the year. It's not just, I'm going to really focus on my sales career right now and hope at Thanksgiving time I find a good deal. And then that tends to happen year after year after year, where you're not any closer to your goals 2 or 3 years from now, because I just got busy with real estate as an agent, not focusing on as an investor.
Sounds familiar.
And I was just going to say too, like when you work a little bit with investors, you're double dipping your time, because I'm looking at deals for investors. And just like you said, if that good opportunity comes along, hey, maybe I go buy this myself, or maybe I go put together a partner or two to do this deal with them. So when you spend just enough time working with investors, now your playground that you're playing in is going to already naturally help you get to your financial goals, versus if I only do residential, now it's like I have to consciously think about investment properties to hit my investing goals. But if I'm working with investors a little bit, the likelihood of me stumbling across a good deal or stumbling across maybe the education I need to move forward on something, I'm more likely to hit that when I'm at least in the investor space a little bit.
I love it, man. I love it. So if somebody says, I love what Mike is bringing to me today, I want to connect with him, what's the best way to get connected to you?
Yeah. So our website is Real Freedom. So it's REL, like you said, real estate leveraged freedom. So relfreedom.com. We have a podcast. I'm excited to share that starting in June, we're actually going from 1 episode a month to 2 episodes, or 1 episode a week to 2 episodes a week. I highlight people building wealth, building time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. Some are investors, some are agents that aren't investing. Some are
Very cool.
other third-party companies that are doing something in real estate to build wealth. So the podcast is all about just highlighting people building wealth, building time and financial freedom through real estate. And then I do have an investor agent tribe that I'm building of agents that want to take this more serious, that want to pursue hitting their investing goals. So we talk about kind of just learning curve, learning about investing, help you become an investor, but also help you get started working with investors so you can put another closing or 2 on the board between now and 6 months from now from an investment property. And so we have a mastermind that we get together, we talk about every week. And so you can go to agentinvestormastermind.com and learn more about that.
I love it. I love it. So anybody who's wanting to take, not necessarily, jump right off and go right into investing, but learn or listen to those that are having success with it. Because I assume when you're interviewing these people on your podcast, it's all varieties of different strategies and approaches to how they've gotten into what they've done. So it's REL Freedom podcast, Real Estate Leverage Freedom podcast. I highly recommend checking that out or going to follow along with Mike. Where are you most prevalent on social?
LinkedIn right now. It's kind of the hangout spot for investors. And so that's where investors tend to connect because a lot of them are business people as well. So in addition to being an agent, LinkedIn is where we're putting more of our focus here on growing our social media.
I love it. Not to mention LinkedIn is the one and only platform that you can still do a lot of hardcore targeting. So even though it's low on my list behind me, it has a lot of uses, and you just kind of exemplified that. So I love it, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing with our audience, man. I think it's always great to hear this. I always want one agent to walk away from our podcast and hopefully it changes their life. And this is not the first time we've talked about this topic. We're going to continue talking about this topic from time to time just because it's so important. And the landscape of our industry continues to change, but there's always opportunity here. So Mike, is awesome chatting with you. Awesome getting connected, and hope we stay connected and keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep crushing.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
LabCoatAgents podcast.